Happy Friday, everybody. Welcome back to another episode. Today, we're going to be talking about doing Disney on a budget. I get a lot of questions about this from friends and family and coworkers who are going of, how can I budget for this trip? How can I save some money? And it's a hard question to answer because every trip is different and everyone has different things they want to do. So as I was getting ready to kind of put this episode together, I was writing out notes, and once I got to about page 10 and I was still going, I realized that it's probably going to take more than one episode to get all this in. So what I'm going to do today is start with kind of a broad overview of breaking down all of the different costs that go into a Disney trip and some general tips on how to save on those. And then in some of the future episodes, we might dig a little deeper into some of these topics of finding even more ways to save. Now, before you can budget for anything, you need to answer two questions. How much am I comfortable spending, and what exactly is it that I need to spend it on? The first question is on something that only you can answer. For the second one, we'll go ahead and take a look at what are you going to actually have to spend money on in order to go to Walt Disney World. When you take your entire budget and your entire trip and you break it down, there are basically 5 categories for any type of Disney budget. Those categories are going to be transportation, lodging, dining, park tickets, and the ever-popular other. Depending on where you live and how many people are traveling with you, it may be cheaper for you to fly than it is to drive. We're going to look at some ways to save money on flights. One of the things that I use is what's called a fare calendar. If you go into an airline's website, a lot of them have a calendar that you can pull up, and it will break down the cheapest days of the month that they offer on their fares. This can help you kind of plan your trips so that you can save the most amount of money by starting and ending your trip at certain times. Most of the airlines, their cheapest fares are going to be Tuesdays and Thursdays. Now, one thing to keep in mind is that Disney hotels charge more on Friday nights and Saturday nights. So you kind of have to play with this a little bit. If you're only going to stay 3 or 4 days, then maybe leaving on Tuesday and checking out on a Friday will work for you. But again, something just kind of keep in mind. A lot of this takes some give and take and trial and error of different combinations. But the Fare Finder is definitely something I would recommend, as something I've used multiple times to get the best deal on a trip. Another thing you're going to want to do is book early. As soon as you can, go in and get those seats booked. Most airlines don't get cheaper as time goes on. They get more expensive as time goes on, especially like Southwest, which tends to sell out of its lowest fare fairly quickly. So just kind of keep in mind, make sure you're checking those sites. One thing I would definitely recommend is going to different airline websites and signing up for their emails. I get a lot of emails about sales and promotions and have been able to book some pretty good deals just based on responding to those emails. Another thing you can look at are the frequent flyer programs or the Visa rewards programs, where you can pay your monthly bills with an airline card and then get points for your daily purchases. That works for some people. It doesn't work for others. It really depends on whether you're going to pay it off every month and how much those annual fees are. So those are all things to look at. And remember, when it comes to saving money on a Disney trip, it's no one thing. There's no one magic bullet. It's basically trying to save as many little savings in each of these categories as possible, and then those little savings come together and will kind of translate into a bigger savings in the long run. Our next topic of discussion is going to be lodging. There's always the debate on property, off property. We'll do an entire show on that and look at kind of the comparison between the two. One thing, just for a general overview of budget, that I would say look at is the hidden costs of staying off property. And what I mean by that is transportation costs from the airport to wherever it is you're staying, as well as things like parking. If you're going to be renting a car and having to park and pay for gas and pay for tolls and all of those things, make sure you take that into account, because that is definitely one thing that can come around and kind of blow your budget up a little more than what you're expecting. One of the big benefits of being on property is having that ground transportation, the Disney's Magical Express, to get you to the resort from the airport, and of course the transportation within the parks. Even if you drive and stay on property, you'll have free parking at the parks, and all of that adds up. So just kind of keep in mind that off property is a great option. We've used it many times, but there are costs associated with that. If you are staying on property, one thing you want to be aware of is to not pay rack rate. That's the normal standard advertised price for the room. Disney's very good about doing seasonal discounts. There are always rumors that they're going to be ending that and they're not going to offer any more discounts, but every time I hear it, then the next season another set of discounts come out. Typically the discounts for Disney are going to come out seasonally, so In spring, you'll get the discounts for summer. Summer, you'll get discounts for fall. Fall, you'll get discounts for winter, so on and so forth. These are going to be room-only discounts. Typically, you can save anywhere from 15 to 30%. It just depends on how they're running the discount for that particular promotion. Typically, your biggest discounts are going to be for your deluxe resorts and then your moderates. And this last time, they didn't do anything for value. So it just depends on where you're going to stay as to how much money you can save. And that really comes down to kind of an overall tip, which is not to just book a package and think that's going to be the best deal. A lot of times you'll do a lot better booking each piece independently. So just kind of throw that in the back of your head too. Another place that I've saved money in online or on-site property is through third-party websites. Sites like Orbitz and others actually offer rooms on Disney property. A few years ago, I was able to book an on-site property using the Disney 30% off code that Orbitz was also offering, but because I was an Orbitz Rewards member, I had an additional promotional coupon that I was able to stack on top of that. Now, that doesn't always work. There are times when you won't be able to stack discounts, and they're typically kind of rare and few and far between when you can, but sometimes it does work out that way, and it can save you a ton of money. Another way that you can save money on your lodging is with PIN codes. These are special codes that Disney will mail out to you. Typically, the PIN code, the discount code that they give you, is going to be exactly the same as what the general advertised code is. I have seen people on discussion boards commenting that when the general promotional discounts were sold out, they were still able to book a room using PIN codes. But I've also heard other people who said they couldn't. So I'm not sure if there's a separate pool of rooms or what. But if you can't get the general code or the general discount and you do have a PIN code, go ahead and just give that a shot and see if that works for you. There's no magic rule for getting PIN codes. It just has to do with your travel habits and where you are in Disney's system as to how often you get them. I get them, I don't know, 3 or 4 times a year with different codes of, hey, we want you to come back and spend money. So they're another source where you can get discounts, but typically they are the exact same discounts that they're going to advertise in their commercials and on their sites. There are a lot of different websites where you can go to kind of get an idea of when these codes are coming out. So we'll link to that below. Another thing that I would recommend if you don't have a lot of time to go search and constantly be looking is to look for a Disney specialist travel agency. There are a ton of them out there. I'll put a link below to several. I know if I start rattling off a list, I'm going to forget some, but I'll try. Dreams Unlimited, Storybook Destinations, Fairy Godmother Travel, Mouse Fan Travel. There's a bunch. There's some really good ones out there. So I will link to some down below. There's others. If I forgot you, I don't hate you. I just, the brain is middle-aged now. So anyway, a Disney specialized travel agent can really save you some cash on this because they're going to be looking all the time. It's not that they're going to get you a better discount than you can find yourself, but because they're always looking, they'll have a kind of a better chance to hit those discounts as soon as they're released, and we'll stay on top of it. We'll often keep checking for additional discounts. So that's another tip, especially if you're staying on site. Now our next budget category is dining, and this one can get really tricky. There's the dining plan. Should I go with the dining plan? Should I not go with the dining plan? My advice for most people when they say, should I go with the dining plan, is probably not. But if you have kids under 10 and you do a lot of character meals, then yeah, you can make an argument for it. I don't know that you're going to save a lot of money, but it definitely will help you to prepay for meals. For us, we will never do the dining plan because it has gotten so expensive and because our kids don't eat anywhere near enough food to come close to us breaking even at all. Now, when they were younger, we did it, and way back then, we could do all 4 of us for $75 a day, which is mind-blowing because that was less than 10 years ago. Now, for all 4 of us, it would be over $300. And there's just no way that we're going to eat $300 of food in a day. We don't do that many character buffets anymore. We're not really bumping into the signature dining, which even then, 2 table service credits, when you break down the cost, I still think you're better off paying out of pocket. To save money on dining, there are so many ways to do it. You could feed 2 people on corn dog nuggets at Casey's for $20, or you could go to the chef's table with wine pairing at Victoria Albert's and feed 2 people for 1 meal for $1,000. And basically anything in between there is a possibility at Disney. There's a lot of ways that you can spend money, save money on dining. Some of the biggest ways that I look for and recommend and that we use to save cash on dining is, one, look for snacks that can be used as meals. There's things like big things of soup or chili or big pretzels or desserts or all kind of different things that you can find that are considered snacks that aren't that much money but are very filling. And so substituting something like that for a meal is a good way to save some cash on dining. Another thing that if you really want to do a nice sit-down meal is look at the lunch menus. A lot of the table services will have discounted lunch prices. Sometimes the food's not exactly the same, so I would recommend that you look at those menus and see, but a lot of times you can save money just by eating a sit-down meal for lunch instead of dinner. Another thing I would recommend is looking at appetizers. A lot of times the appetizers make good meals themselves. One of our favorite places to eat is Chefs de France, and a lot of times we'll go there for lunch. A lot of times we like to go there during lunch, and the way that I order is I get the French onion soup, which is this huge bowl of soup. And between the soup and the bread they bring to the table, I'm full just from that, and that's $8.99. My girls, their favorite thing on the menu is that flatbread that has the creme fraiche and the onions and the bacon, and that's $12.99. So we're not spending huge amounts of money, but we're having a really nice meal in a nice restaurant, and it's a great break from the crowd. So if you do things like that, you can have nice meals, you can have good food that's not fast food without breaking the bank. Another thing that I would recommend is at some of the table service restaurants, if you do go for dinner or if you're ordering a large entree, would be to split it. My wife and I did this at the Primetime 50s Cafe. We split the sampler that has all the different things on it, and it was plenty of food for the both of us. And we've done that at other places. So just be aware that the entrees are huge, and a lot of times there'll be more food there than one person can eat. Just this last January, when I was down there, I ate at Art Smith Homecoming and got the fried chicken, and I couldn't finish that plate. And there's just so much food there that you could have easily split that with two people. So that's another way you can save some cash. My biggest recommendation for dining is look at the menus before you go. Get a good idea of the type of things you can eat. Look for those hidden gems, especially snacks, appetizers, things like that where you can get full without spending a huge amount of money, and you can really save a lot of money on your dining. Another thing I would recommend is to bring breakfast food like a cereal bar, granola bar, Pop-Tart, something like that you can have in your room and just grab and take with you and eat in the mornings, and that will also save you some cash on dining. And our next item up for bid is park tickets. Now, when it comes to park tickets, you can find some limited discounts out there. There are some sites where you can get okay deals. Anything that gets more than a 10% discount off of Disney's price, I would be very cautious with. There are a lot of sites that will offer these huge discounts, and everybody thinks they're getting a good deal, and lo and behold, they're signing up for some type of subscription to go with that, or obligating themselves in other ways, or even worse, they get tickets that are counterfeit. They show up and they can't get in the parks. I would say especially be careful on eBay. I would never order tickets on there because you never know what you're actually getting. You can't use someone else's ticket if they have days left over, what have you. Disney uses fingerprints to scan you into the park, so you're not going to be able to use a ticket someone else used. And you read through the discussion boards, and it happens more often than you would think, where people show up and they don't have working tickets. And Disney will be sympathetic, and they'll tell you how bad that is, and they'll tell you how sorry they are, but they will not give you a free ticket to get in the park because they're not going to reward that type of activity by just letting you come on in. So just be aware that that could really put a damper on your trip if you suddenly have to come up with $300 and $400 a person for park tickets that you weren't counting on. So the site that I use for tickets is called Undercover Tourist, and it's about 10% or so off the Disney price, and that's about average. Anything more than that, and the people selling it to you are taking a loss on every ticket, so you have to ask yourself, why would someone do that? And the answer is they wouldn't and stay in business. So be diligent, be cautious. You can find some discounts out there, but tickets are really one of those categories where you're not going to find a whole lot of discount on. Now, there are some places in Orlando where you can go and do timeshares and get free tickets or things like that. And if you want to do that, knock yourself out. Now our next and final category is other. This is going to include things like PhotoPass, souvenirs, renting a boat and shooting around the lagoon, the Christmas party, the Halloween party, the dessert parties, all the different add-ons you can do. It's going to be things like dinner shows like Hoop-de-Doo or the Spirit of Aloha, the balloon rides down at Disney Springs, all these other extra add-ons. You can find some different coupons for those. Usually the official guidebook that from Burn Bonds has coupons for those things in the back. That might save you a little bit of money. This is really the one area where you can have the most impact on your budget by just cutting these things out. One of the tips I have heard from people who have little kids for when it comes to souvenirs is they will buy things at home and then give it to their kid each day as a gift. So, they'll get the discount plushes or, go to the outlets or get, little trinkets or whatever. And every day they'll have a little prize or a little gift for their kids and give those to them in the mornings instead of buying souvenirs in the parks themselves. And that can save a lot of money. Also, there's a couple of Disney outlet stores in Orlando and they do get park merchandise. So if you've got time and you've got a car, that's a great way to save some money on some souvenirs. For PhotoPass, the PhotoPass photographers will take your picture with your camera, so that's another way you can save some money and have them take their picture and then hand off. They'll take a picture with your camera as well, so you can save some cash there. And then the others are just kind of optionals. How much do you want to spend and what are you willing to give up? That's going to wrap us up today. We've gone over the 5 things that go into a Disney budget. To recap, they are transportation, lodging, dining, park tickets, and other. So as you look at your trip and what you need to budget for, each area has ways that you can save money, and putting those savings together can save you a lot of money. So we'll be drilling down into some of those deeper in upcoming episodes, particularly lodging, because there's so much to look at as far as on property versus off property and ways that you can save there. So we'll be really looking at that in depth here coming up, and we'll probably take a look at dining as well, go a little more in depth, share some sample menus, put together some plans of different ways that you can save. So look for those coming up. I want to thank you for joining us today. Down below there's a subscribe button. Click on that. Click the bell next to it. You'll be notified every time we upload. Hit that like button. Leave some comments. Let us know what you thought. If you have some tips for saving money that you want to share with the world, go ahead and throw them in down below and everyone can benefit. So thanks for watching, everybody. Hope you have a great weekend. Take care, y'all.